In 1899, the word power tool did not exist. There was no category for it, no industry built around it, no shelf in any catalogue where a tradesperson could browse portable electric machines designed to be carried to a job site. The concept itself had not been articulated. Every saw, every drill, every chisel, every plane was either operated by hand or bolted to the floor of a workshop. If a carpenter needed to cut a mortise into a timber beam, he picked up a mallet and a chisel and he struck it again and again until the joint was finished. If the beam was on a construction site 3 stories above the ground, the carpenter carried his hand tools up to the beam. If the beam was in a forest, the carpenter knelt in the mud. The machine did not travel to the work. The work travelled to the machine, or the work was done without a machine at all. In the town of Fellbach near Stuttgart in the industrial heartland of southwestern Germany, a small engineering company was founded that year. It was called Maschinenfabrik Fellbach. The name meant nothing more than Machine Factory Fellbach. It produced general mechanical equipment, components, and industrial machinery for local manufacturers. The Stuttgart region was already becoming one of Europe's most concentrated engineering corridors. Daimler had built his first automobile less than 15 kilometers away. Bosch was building magneto-ignition systems in the same city. The area attracted machinists, metalworkers, and engineers the way a river attracts mills. Maschinenfabrik Fellbach was one of dozens of small workshops feeding the appetite of a region that was inventing the 20th century. For 20 years, the company did general mechanical work. It survived, it grew modestly. It built whatever its customers needed, built. By 1919, the name had been shortened. Maschinenfabrik Fellbach became Mafell. The abbreviation stuck. The company was still small, still a contract manufacturer, still making parts for other people's machines. Then, in 1926, something happened that the woodworking industry has never fully credited. Mafell built the world's first portable electric carpentry machine. It was a chain mortiser, designated the machine type A. An electric motor drove a cutting chain that carved rectangular mortises into timber beams. The machine was designed to be carried to the workpiece, not the other way around. A carpenter could bring it to a construction site, clamp it to a beam, and cut a mortise in a fraction of the time it took with a mallet and chisel. The joints that held timber-framed buildings together, the mortise and tenon connections that had been cut by hand for centuries, could now be machined on site by a single worker with an electric tool. This was not an incremental improvement. This was a category invention. Before the machine type A, every carpentry operation that required power was performed by a stationary machine in a workshop. The beam came to the machine, the house frame came to the workshop, or the joinery was done by hand on site. After the machine type A, the machine went to the beam, the machine went to the site, the machine went to the forest. The significance of this moment is difficult to overstate and remarkably easy to overlook. Every portable circular saw, every cordless drill, every plunge-cut track saw, every handheld router that exists today descends conceptually from the idea that Mafell proved in 1926. The idea that an electric machine could be made small enough, light enough, and reliable enough to be carried by one person to the point of work. Mafell did not become famous for it. Mafell did not become large because of it. The company did not build a global brand around the claim. It simply kept building machines. In 1933, the company relocated. The original facility in Fellbach had run out of space, and local authorities in Fellbach rejected proposals for expansion. Mafell moved its entire operation to Oberndorf, Eisteig, a small town on the Neckar River in the Black Forest region of Baden-Württemberg. The move was practical. The mayor of Eisteig offered a site that included a mill and a small farm, which provided food for the workforce. Mafell settled in and continued producing. 2 years later, in 1935, an engineer named Rudolf May took over the management of the company. Under May's leadership, Mafell sharpened its focus. The company stopped being a general-purpose machine shop and committed fully to portable woodworking tools. Chain mortisers, circular saws, planers. Machines built specifically for carpenters, timber framers, and joiners who worked on site, not in a factory. The Second World War disrupted the company the way it disrupted every German manufacturer. Mafell's factory, like those of Stihl, Bosch and hundreds of other firms, was repurposed for contributions to the war effort. When the war ended in 1945, Germany's industrial base was shattered. Factories had been bombed, supply chains had collapsed, raw materials were rationed or unavailable. The country that had been the engineering capital of Europe was rebuilding from rubble. Mafell survived. The factory in Oberndorf had not been destroyed. The workforce was depleted but intact enough to restart. The supply of raw materials was erratic, but the knowledge was still there. The engineers who had built portable chain mortisers before the war built portable chain mortisers after the war. The demand had not disappeared. Germany was rebuilding. Every reconstruction project needed timber. Every timber structure needed joinery. Every joint cut on site needed a portable machine. Through the late 1940s and into the 1950s, Mafell rebuilt steadily. The company did not pivot to consumer goods. It did not diversify into unrelated product lines to chase post-war demand. It stayed where it had always been. Portable machines for professional carpenters. The machines improved with each generation. Lighter, more powerful, more precise. The cutting chains for the mortisers became sharper and longer lasting. The motors became more efficient. The housings became more refined. Through the 1950s and into the 1960s, Mafell continued to refine its range. The company continued developing portable chain mortisers, portable circular saws, and portable planers, each generation lighter and more precise than the last. In 1960, Mafell made a materials decision that would become one of its defining signatures. The company began manufacturing its machine housings from magnesium die castings. Magnesium is 1/3 lighter than aluminium. It absorbs vibration better. It dissipates heat more efficiently. It is also significantly more expensive to work with and more difficult to cast at the tolerances required for power tool housings. Most tool manufacturers in the 1960s were moving toward cheaper materials. Plastics were becoming viable for tool enclosures. Injection molded housings could be produced in enormous quantities at a fraction of the cost of cast metal. The industry was beginning its long migration toward lighter, cheaper, more disposable tool bodies. Mafell went the other direction. Magnesium die castings, heavier in cost, lighter in the hand, stronger under stress. A Mafell circular saw housing made from magnesium would survive a fall from a scaffold that would crack a plastic housing in half. It would run cooler after an hour of continuous cutting. It would hold its dimensional accuracy after a decade of daily use. The housing was not a cost-saving measure. It was an engineering commitment, and Mafell has never abandoned it. Today, more than 60 years later, Mafell still uses magnesium die castings for its tool housings. The machines are still made in one factory. That factory is still in Oberndorf am Neckar. In 1974, Ernst Krauss became managing director of Mafell. Under Krauss, the company entered what would become its most productive period of innovation. Krauss understood that Mafell's identity was not merely portable woodworking tools. It was something more specific. Mafell built machines for carpenters who worked at the highest level of the trade. Timber framers cutting massive beams on remote sites. Joiners fitting complex joints in hardwood. Finish carpenters installing staircases in historic buildings. These were professionals who could not afford imprecision and would not tolerate tools that failed under sustained load. In 1980, Mafell introduced the Erika. It was the world's first pull-push saw. The concept was radical. In a conventional table saw, the workpiece moves. The operator pushes the wood through a stationary blade. This arrangement has a fundamental problem on job sites. Long, heavy boards are awkward to push through a stationary blade. The operator needs space behind the saw for the workpiece to exit. The accuracy of the cut depends on the steadiness of the operator's push. If the board catches, if the operator hesitates, if the feed rate is uneven, the cut quality suffers. On a construction site with uneven floors, limited space, and constant interruption, pushing heavy timber through a fixed blade is an exercise in managing variables that are inherently difficult to control. The Erika reversed the entire dynamic. The workpiece stays still. The blade moves, the operator locks the fence where the cut needs to be, holds the material against it, and pulls a handle to draw the blade through the wood. Then pushes it back. The result was a saw that could cross-cut and rip with a level of accuracy that conventional job site table saws could not match, in a package light enough and compact enough to carry to a construction site and set up in minutes. The operator controlled the blade, not the workpiece. The precision was in the machine's movement, not in the operator's ability to feed a board straight. The Erika had no competition for 12 years. No other manufacturer in the world produced a pull-push saw. Mafell owned the category entirely, not through patents that blocked competitors, but because no one else had figured out how to build one that worked at a professional standard. The Erika became so well known among European carpenters that in some languages the product name became the generic term for the entire category of pull-push saws. The way Kleenex means tissue, Erika meant pull-push saw. The tool defined the category it had invented. Ernst Krauss ran the company for nearly 3 decades. When his son, Matthias Krauss, took over management in 2001, the transition was generational but not philosophical. The son continued what the father had built. The same factory, the same focus, the same refusal to chase volume at the expense of quality. There is a question that woodworkers have debated in forums, on job sites, and in workshops for 20 years. Mafell or Festool? The comparison is inevitable. Both companies are German. Both are family-owned. Both manufacture premium woodworking power tools at price points that make most tradespeople hesitate before buying. Both sell through specialist dealers rather than big-box retail chains, and both occupy a position in the market that no other manufacturer seriously contests. But the comparison reveals more differences than similarities, and the differences tell you everything about what each company actually is. Festool was founded in 1925, 1 year before Mafell built the world's first portable carpentry machine. It was originally called Fieser and Stoll, after its 2 founders, Albert Fieser and Gottlieb Stoll. The company started by repairing stationary woodworking machinery, then began producing its own machines. By the early 1930s, Fieser had left and the name was shortened to Festo. In the decades that followed, the company split. The industrial automation division became Festo, which grew into a global automation and pneumatics giant with billions in revenue. The power tool division was spun off in 2000 as Festool, under the TTS Tooltechnik Systems holding company. Festool remains family-owned by the Stoll family. It is a subsidiary, not an independent company, but its ownership has never changed hands. Festool's philosophy is systems. Everything connects. The dust extractor connects to the sander connects to the guide rail connects to the plunge saw. The plunge saw stores in a cisterna. The cisterna stacks with other cisternas. Bluetooth-enabled batteries communicate with Bluetooth-enabled extractors. The entire workshop becomes an integrated ecosystem where every component is designed to work with every other component. Buy 1 Festool tool and you are invited into a system. Buy 5 and you are committed to it. Mafell's philosophy is the individual machine. Each tool is designed to be the best possible version of itself, not to plug into a larger ecosystem. A Mafell plunge cut saw is not optimized to pair with a Mafell dust extractor through a wireless protocol. It is optimized to cut wood with maximum precision under maximum load for the maximum number of years. The motor is built for sustained duty. The housing is magnesium, not plastic. The gearing is designed for a carpenter who runs the machine 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. Festool builds a system for the workshop. Mafell builds a machine for the carpenter. Both approaches are legitimate. Both produce exceptional tools. But the priorities are different, and the users who gravitate toward each brand tend to know exactly why they chose it. Festool's audience includes Finnish carpenters, cabinet makers, painters, and renovation specialists, professionals who value dust extraction, modularity, and a seamless workflow across a range of tasks. Mafell's audience skews toward timber framers, structural carpenters and joiners, professionals who need raw cutting power, maximum durability, and tools that survive the most punishing job site conditions year after year. The price comparison is not straightforward. Mafell tools are often more expensive individually than their Festool equivalents. A Mafell track saw costs more than a Festool track saw. A Mafell jigsaw costs significantly more than a Festool jigsaw, but Mafell does not require the ecosystem purchase. There is no sustainer system, no integrated extraction platform. The Mafell tool works with standard industrial hoses, standard accessories, and standard workshop infrastructure. The total cost of entry is different depending on how deeply you invest in each brand's world. The debate will never be settled. It does not need to be. The two companies serve overlapping but distinct populations of professional woodworkers, and the existence of both keeps the other honest. What the Mafell versus Festool argument really reveals is not which company makes a better tool. It reveals what the buyer values most. If you value a connected ecosystem where every tool, every accessory, and every storage solution is designed to interlock seamlessly, Festool is the logical choice. If you value raw machine durability, motor longevity under sustained load, and a tool that is overbuilt rather than optimized for system integration, Mafell is the logical choice. The internet forum debates generate heat but very little light, because the two companies are solving different problems for different professionals who happen to cut the same material. What both companies share is the thing that matters most in the long run. Neither has been sold or acquired by a conglomerate. Neither has had its engineering budget slashed to hit a quarterly margin target. Neither has moved production to a lower-cost country to satisfy a private equity owner's return timeline. Both are still German, still family-controlled, and still building tools for people who use them every day. In an industry where independence is vanishing, the fact that two premium German tool manufacturers remain privately held and fully committed to professional-grade manufacturing is not just noteworthy. It is increasingly rare. What sets Mafell apart from virtually every other power tool manufacturer on Earth is not any single product, it is the manufacturing model. Mafell produces up to 85% of its components in-house, in a single factory in Oberndorf am Neckar. Population roughly 8,000. The company makes its own electric motors. It molds its own magnesium and plastic housings using its own injection molding equipment. It machines its own gears and drivetrain components on its own CNC systems. It winds its own motor coils. It assembles, tests, and packages every tool under one roof. The factory is not an assembly plant where pre-made components arrive from suppliers in 5 countries and are bolted together on a line. It is a manufacturing facility in the original sense of the word. Mafell makes things. From raw material to finished tool, the majority of the process happens within the walls of a single building in a small town in the Black Forest. This is a company that builds its own tooling. The molds, the jigs, the fixtures that hold components during machining, Mafell makes those too. The tool-making operation is internal. When a new product is designed, the tooling required to manufacture it is built in the same facility by the same organization. There is no outsourcing of production tooling to a third-party manufacturer in another country. The institutional knowledge of how to make the tools that make the tools lives in Oberndorf and nowhere else. This model is almost extinct in the power tool industry. Stanley Black & Decker manufactures DeWalt tools in multiple countries using global supply chains. TTI manufactures Milwaukee tools in factories across Asia and Eastern Europe. Bosch distributes production across a worldwide network of plants. Even Festool, which manufactures primarily in Germany, does not match Mafell's level of vertical integration. Mafell's CUprex motor platform, the proprietary high-performance motor generation that powers the company's current tools, was developed and is manufactured entirely in Oberndorf. The motors use digitally optimized electronics with constant speed control under load, smooth starting, and overload protection. They are not purchased from an external motor supplier and rebadged. They are designed by Mafell engineers, built by Mafell workers, and tested by Mafell quality assurance staff in the same building where the rest of the tool is assembled. The cost of this model is enormous, manufacturing 85% of your components in-house in Germany, where labor costs are among the highest in the world, where energy costs are rising, where regulatory standards are strict, and where a workforce of 280 people must possess the skills to operate advanced CNC machinery, injection molding systems, and precision motor winding equipment, is not a strategy that any business consultant would recommend to a company trying to maximize short-term profit. Mafell does not maximize short-term profit. Mafell maximizes the quality and the longevity of the machine. The vertical integration is not an inefficiency, it is the mechanism by which quality is controlled. When the motor is built in the same factory as the housing, by people who talk to each other every day, and the gear train is machined on the same floor, and the assembly worker who puts it all together has been with the company for 15 or 20 years, the feedback loop between design, manufacturing, and field performance is immediate. A problem observed on a job site in France is reported to a dealer, relayed to the factory, discussed between the motor engineer and the housing engineer, and resolved in the next production run. There is no supply chain delay, no negotiation with a third-party component supplier in another country. The problem and the solution exist in the same building. The product range that Mafell builds from this single factory is remarkably broad for a company of its size. Circular saws, plunge-cut track saws, jigsaws, portable bandsaws capable of cutting timbers over 10 inches thick in a single pass, chain mortisers, planers, routers, the Erika pull-push saw in multiple sizes, dust extraction systems, a portable dowel joinery machine, an insulation saw, a groove cutting machine, and an edge banding system. In 2002, Mafell introduced the PSS 3000, the world's first self-propelled rail-guided mobile panel saw. The tool could cut full-size panels on a job site with the precision of a workshop panel saw. It won the Rudolf Eberle Innovation Award from the state of Baden-Württemberg. In 2003, the FlexSystem KSP40 won the Umacop Innovation Award. In 2011, the P1cc plunge cut saw received the IF Product Design Award. In 2007, 2009, 2014 and 2021, Mafell was named one of the top 100 most innovative companies in Germany. The awards matter less than what they indicate. A company of 280 people operating from a single factory in a town of 8,000, producing 85% of its components in-house, competing in an industry dominated by multi-billion-dollar conglomerates, continues to produce machines that independent evaluators judge among the most innovative in the world. In 2017, Mafell launched the DSS 300 cubic centimeters, a dedicated insulation saw. In 2018, the Duo Dowel DDF40, a portable dowel joining machine. In 2019, the HITM Zero Joint Edge Bander. In 2020, the NFU50 groove cutting machine. Every year a new machine, every machine designed, engineered and manufactured in Oberndorf. Mafell has never been acquired, never been merged, never been listed on a stock exchange and then taken private again. It has never been the subject of a leveraged buyout, and it has never been stripped by a private equity firm and resold 3 years later with half the engineering budget and twice the margin targets. The power tool industry has been through a half-century of consolidation that has left almost no brand untouched. The pattern is always the same. A private equity firm or a large conglomerate identifies a tool brand with strong professional reputation and loyal customers. It acquires the brand, it reduces manufacturing costs by moving production to lower cost facilities. It cuts the engineering team. It expands the product line into lower margin consumer segments to increase volume. It extracts margin. Within a decade, the professional customers who built the brand's reputation have moved to a competitor, and the brand survives as a name on a product that no longer resembles what the name once stood for. Mafell has watched this happen to brand after brand. It has never participated. In 1997, the company converted from a GmbH and Commod KG into an Aktiengesellschaft, a German stock corporation. But this was a structural reorganization, not a public offering. The ownership remained private. The Kraus family continued to manage the company. The shares did not trade on any exchange. The company's subsidiaries include Exron GmbH, which manufactures high-speed milling machines, and EDM Systems, Midex Electronic GmbH, which produces electronic controls, and Rudolf May Wohnungsbau GmbH, a housing construction company named after the engineer who took over the firm in 1935. The group structure is modest, privately held, and entirely self-contained. There is no holding company in Hong Kong, no parent corporation in Connecticut, and no quarterly earnings call. This matters because in the power tool industry, independence is almost gone. Milwaukee is owned by TTI, a Hong Kong conglomerate. DeWalt is owned by Stanley Black and Decker. Craftsman is owned by Stanley Black and Decker. Porter Cable was owned by Stanley Black and Decker until it was discontinued. Ryobi branded tools are manufactured by TTI under license. Rigid branded tools are manufactured by TTI under license for Home Depot. Hitachi Koki was sold to KKR, renamed Metabo HPT, and absorbed into a private equity portfolio. Metabo was sold to the Hitachi Koki Group before that group itself was sold. The cycle of acquisition, optimization, margin extraction, and resale has consumed nearly every independent tool brand that once existed. Mafell has not been consumed. It is still here, still in Oberndorf, still privately held, still building 85% of its components in one factory with 280 employees. If you ask most woodworkers to name the company that invented portable power tools, they will not say Mafell. They will say Black & Decker or Bosch or Festool or Makita. They will name a brand they have seen in a store, used on a job site, or watched reviewed on YouTube. They will name a company with a marketing budget large enough to place its name in front of millions of people every year. Mafell does not have that budget. Mafell does not have that ambition. The company has never pursued mass market visibility. It sells through specialist dealers. Its tools are priced for professionals who know what they need and why they need it. Its marketing is the machine itself. A timber framer in Austria picks up a Mafell chain mortiser because the colleague on the last job was using one, and the mortises were cut in half the time with twice the precision. A Finnish carpenter in France buys a Mafell plunge saw because the tool he saw demonstrated at a trade fair cut, cleaner and quieter than anything else on the market. The reputation travels the same way Makita's reputation traveled in the 1970s. Word of mouth. Job site demonstration. The quiet accumulation of trust built by a tool that does not break. A Mafell chain mortiser in a timber framing shop runs harder than almost any other portable tool in the trade. It cuts through oak, Douglas fir, and laminated beams hour after hour, day after day. Timber framers describe their mortisers the way long-haul truckers describe a reliable engine. The tool is not a product, it is a partner. It does the work that would destroy a lesser machine, and it does it again the next morning. Mafell has been doing this for 127 years. It has been building portable woodworking machines for 100 years, since the machine type A chain mortiser in 1926. It has been doing it from the same region of Germany, under continuous private ownership, without being acquired, merged, taken over by private equity, or relocated from the single factory where every machine is made. The company that invented the portable power tool is still building them, by hand in a factory in a town of 8,000 people, in the Black Forest, in the country that gave the world the automobile, the jet engine, and the modern machine tool. One factory. 280 employees, 127 years of continuous operation. The ownership has never changed hands, the production has never left the building, and the marketing department has never been large enough to make the world remember who built the first portable electric carpentry machine. Stihl built the chainsaw. Makita built the cordless power tool platform. Hilti built the direct sales model for construction. Festool built the integrated tool system. Mafell built the idea that a power tool could leave the workshop and go to the work. That idea, born in a small German factory in 1926, is now so universal that no one thinks to ask where it came from. Most of the world has never heard of Mafell. The carpenters who use one every day do not care whether the world has heard of it or not. They care that the mortise is square, the cut is clean, and the machine is still running after 10 years of daily use. That is not a marketing strategy. That is 100 years of building things properly and refusing to stop.